Here at Unfinished Business Television, we are proud affiliate partners of the site Super 7, the home of all your needs for classic 80s and 70s action figures and apparel. Be sure to support our show by using the link super7.com/AJEpics when you check out for any product in their store. We hope you can support us in our endeavors.
And hey, Unfinished Business fans, here is part 2 of our interview with the legendary director, James Foley.
This might be a good time to tell you like a nice story that you probably would appreciate. So this
Great. Good news.
ties back to Papa Don't Preach. So
yeah, that's always a good thing.
So anyway, I was born and raised in Staten Island, and my dad is a dentist. He's semi-retired now, but he had a private practice on Roosevelt Avenue. And one of the patients was your brother Kevin, back when he was working. Yeah, he was working for the New York State Insurance at the time.
Yes.
And actually, when I was born, he actually helped my parents with my insurance because they were having some issues. And he was
here.
yeah, and when you guys shot Papa Don't Preach, so you shot Madonna's house on Edgar Terrace. And just so I'm going to bleep this later, but my house was on the other end of that street.
Yeah, you're freaking me out. But I
Yeah,
have to ask you.
I was 2 years old. I have no evidence I was ever on the set,
So
but
you're recording now. So when you do this, what you're saying now, I can access and show my brother. Right?
Yeah, no, my dad actually wanted to touch base with him if he was still around.
Yeah, you want more subscribers and followers? No, your brother can't see it because we don't want too many people seeing this. Okay, I'm an idiot. But it's like you're saying that, and my telling him that is not nearly as good as showing him that, and he'll feel like a big cheese, basking in the glow of my spotlight. But I don't have sibling rivalry. I don't know who Cain and Abel are. Anyway, I really diverge with that. But that's fucking interesting. And what really blows me away is, of course, the Twin Towers showing up repeatedly in that video.
Yeah.
Which obviously I knew to do that. Duh. Of course, I had no idea. But man, it is in your face, particularly that shot coming up the street. And, I mean, I'm going to start crying now. But interestingly enough, obviously, if you live on Staten Island, the visual of the towers is the most profound, because where else could you live in the city where it would be in your face? And so, and you go up hills and stuff, or on the way from West Brighton down to the ferry, whatever that road, Richmond Road, going down to the ferry.
Richmond Terrace, so it goes from Bay Street.
So, yeah, and so it would just be there. The towers would just be there all the time. So if for anybody, and they're not there, it would be most dramatic for Staten Islanders. And a lot of people, but I'll just say this one thing about that, is that, of course, there are endless influencers who are watching things from the first time. They're watching Papa Don't Preach for the first time. And I got to send you this, because shockingly, and maybe you guys are smarter than me, because I can't get anybody to explain why is it that, no exaggeration, 99.9% of those influencers look at the video and interpret it as she's keeping her baby, her boyfriend, not that she's pregnant. And it's like, I watch it and I go, what? And it's ubiquitous. And then you read the comments and people are agreeing. And then all of a sudden, a comment comes up. It says, guys, I'm a little bit older. She's talking about her baby. She's pregnant. And then people are arguing, no, she's not. Now, I need to know from somebody, why is that? What has changed that in 1984 there was no question about it? Now there is. Why?
It's generational. It's like now with even like the movies you made back in your day, they have these slap like, oh, this has outdated attitudes in it, and it annoys the shit out of me because it's like watching at close range or watching Fear, you were doing heavy duty stuff in there that is artistic, but now they want to like shun all that stuff.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't know what's different in the culture that would affect that, because if you make something which dealt with gender identity or the gay stuff, then the dynamic would be different and you would understand it. But what is different in the culture about being pregnant where people wouldn't get that now? It's, to me, a fascinating psychological thing. I mean, that kind of stuff I'm really interested in because I can't figure it out, and it is so profound that it's, whether it's a 20-something girl in Lagos, Lagos in Nigeria,
I believe so,
and or from around the world, and to the person, they don't get that she's pregnant, but they do like the video. So that's good. And it has more views than Vogue, which I let David Fincher know. Anytime I can get a dig out of him, I will. David Fincher, who does not go online, which is amazing. But
I have two questions for you about At Close Range. So for one, in working with Sean Penn, for a guy that's that method, and clearly, like I've heard stories, sometimes he'll clash with directors if they try to dictate too much to him. How do you deal with a guy like him? And also, is it true he offered you to direct Colors after that?
Wow. You have deep background information.
Well, I read his book. It's autobiography.
Wow. That is true. Definitely Colors. And the thing I want to say, and I probably now take it as a badge of honor, but I didn't, is that issue of, I can't tell you how many times I was told what a nightmare Al Pacino is going to be, or Sean Penn, or Gene Hackman, maybe most dramatically. He's a monster to directors. And I never had 1 second of any of those people being the least bit monstrous. And this will make me cry, but in a good way, because I'm remembering it. I made The Chamber, which was a flop, and it's not a great movie. And it was an example of, sorry, Chris, but where the opposite of saying it's Mark Wahlberg, I'm out of here. Chris, what was his name?
Chris O'Donnell.
Chris O'Donnell was hot from something. And so Universal was pushing Chris O'Donnell because he was hot. And I gave in. It wasn't like I thought he was terrible, but it wasn't a choice I made because I felt it. I allowed myself to be. And, you know, it's Gene Hackman. It's fucking, what's his name? French Connection, Popeye Doyle.
Yeah, Popeye.
All that stuff. And he's so legendary for being a monster. And this friend, Josh Don, and I talked about, was a producer on The Quick and the Dead, which was Sharon Stone and a young Leo DiCaprio. And he was, before I made The Chamber, he was telling me about Sam Raimi directed the movie.
Yes.
And Gene came on when they were already shooting, and Gene's first day, he's out going to shoot somebody or something. And apparently, and this is so anathema to me, for better or for worse, because Sam Raimi's made good movies, is that Sam Raimi goes up to Gene Hackman with his storyboards, explain to him, when you say this line, you use your right hand and grab the gun, on and on. I mean, stuff that I would never, ever even imagine telling to an actor, because I'm not an actor. So why should what I think the performance should be? I want Gene Hackman to. Anyway, Gene Hackman took the book. I said, "Are you done?" He took the book and he threw it as far as you could say and said, "You're out of your fucking mind," which I totally get. And then, but anyway, I'm making the movie, and at the end of the first week of shooting, it's a Friday, and I'm going to my car. The AD is giving me the call sheet for Monday, and a second AD who's in charge of trailer land comes up to me and says, "Gene is asking if you'll stop off in his trailer before you go." So, of course, my reaction is, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. He's going to yell at me. So I go prepared for that. And this is a movie in my head. It took me years to appreciate. I knock on the door. He's got a gigantic trailer. And he's way in the back. And he's half taken off his death row costume. And he's very kind of shy and stuttering. And he says to me, "I just wanted to say that it's been a good week." I said, "Okay, thanks." But I closed the door and I left and didn't think about it for years until I did. And I realized that I could give a fuck whether that movie made any money or didn't. And by the way, it lost a fortune, and the same studio paid me millions to direct 50 Shades movies. So what do I care? I got to work with Gene Hackman, and he thought I was a good director. So however much the movie costs, worth it for me. But the thing was that I just, not on purpose, but for me, the actors are everything, because they're, particularly on those movies where they're stand-ins for me. So the directing of them is an emotional thing, which is why I have always gotten to know actors before shooting, because I don't want to, because it's a relationship, which sometimes, like with Wahlberg and Sean, leads to lasting friendships, because you're involved in a project that is personal to both of you. And those are the best movies. And, but I remember my agent saying that I was the lion tamer, because all these difficult actors I never had any problem with, but I didn't do anything different. I didn't think about it. It's just my inclination to want to interact with. I'm not going to show Gene Hackman storyboards, for God's sake, about how he should act. And I realized that because when you're a director and you've never worked on a movie, you really have very little knowledge of how other directors do it, because you're not there and stuff. But there are lots of directors who, like, I get gossip from ADs or script supervisors. They're the best because they know all the gossip. That directors who would do anything to keep from having to deal with the actors. And I'm the opposite. It's like, it's all about the actors. Everything else will take care of itself. But the magic potion is a moment unexpected out of Gene Hackman or Al Pacino or Sean Penn, blah, blah, blah. And boy, when you go up and say something to an actor, and that's the other thing, I know directors who yell their direction to an actor, and all the other actors in the scene can hear him. And I think, what? That's insane, because you don't want the other actors to know what this actor is going to do. You want them to respond. And when you say something and you happened upon saying the right thing, and you do the take and they do it and they're better. Man, talk about orgasms. It's all pleasure. That is the highest pleasure. But you have to have Mozart to play the music. So, and I acted once in my life, and I ain't no actor, but on a close range, we're down there, and there was a day player who was supposed to show up to say 2 lines in the jail when Sean's in jail. He's the assistant district attorney, and the guy didn't show up. So what are we going to do? And so Sean says, you do it. I'll direct you. I'm like, get out of here. I'm not going to do it. And he convinced me he'll direct me. And however, a couple of hours I had to stand there with the camera looking at me was hell. And all I could think of was like, I would go, hello, hello, what's going on? And Sean's whispering to the camera operator and stuff. And it was like, I know where my place is and it's not here. So given that, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I want them to do it. And so I'm not telling them what the emotion is. Because like Glengarry being the biggest example, each of those guys had a radically different approach to acting. So that really was the epitome of my realizing, without thinking about it, that it wasn't about them learning my language. It was about me learning their language. So with each of them, like scenes where they're all there, I would have to go up to each person and speak a certain language to Al Pacino that Jack Lemmon would never understand, and vice versa. But that was the ultimate thing. And, you know, on Glengarry, we rehearsed for 4 weeks, which was very odd. And I rehearsed with each of those guys by themselves. And then when they're in the scene with another actor, then those 2 actors, but never with all of them together. And so literally, I'd be whispering in each of their ears. And I swear to God, no 2 actors could be different than Jack Lemmon and Al Pacino. Jack Lemmon is, you want me to wipe my brow, this and that? He wanted instructions. And Al was like, I think once or something, he heard what I was saying to him. And I remember Al like walking away, not wanting to hear that. And Jack Lemmon, sure as fuck, would not want to hear what I was saying to Al. But to each their own. And I mean, Jack Lemmon, here's a guy who I see myself directing him and like I should be directing him. And then it hits me, wait a minute. Billy Wilder, what drug was I on that I was not thinking of that? And Jack Lemmon was just, it makes me the best. He was Jack fucking Lemmon, and he just wanted to be directed. And then, you know, to get into the academy, you have to distinguish yourself in a certain way. But I got in early because Jack Lemmon was a big cheese in the academy, and he vouched for me. Something I didn't appreciate because it wasn't even cool to watch the Oscars, let alone want one. Only, but I feel differently now. And I mean, Jack Lemmon was in a movie with Marilyn Monroe. I mean, what the fuck? But you don't think about that when you're on a set because, and fame fascinates me because you can't be famous unless there are fans who are reflecting it. So I plenty of memories thinking of Al because we're shooting mainly on that stage in Astoria. Where the fuck were we? Silver Cup? Where is that? Brooklyn or Queens?
Queens.
Okay, and most of it's on the stage, and then we have a little bit outside. And I remember I'd be hanging out in Al's trailer, and then the AD comes, says, we're ready outside. So me and Al walk outside, keep on talking, and I'm not making this up. All of a sudden, the crowd is getting excited and responding. Swear to God, my thought was, who's here? I got excited. And it took me a good 5 seconds to realize it's Al they're responding to, because a few seconds later in his trailer, he's not famous. And it happened with Madonna, because I have photographs of Madonna sitting in the same house before it was duded up. And she's sitting at a table, and in front of her is a cup with the Breakfast Club on it. It's 19, and she's sitting there eating Chinese food out of a carton, and her hair is pulled up in a bun. And actually, it was the night of the premiere of After Dark, and the company had no money. But the producer said to me, if you can get your friend to come, obviously that would help. So I asked her to come as a favor. And so she said, Chinese food, it's time to go. She goes in a little bathroom with a little case, and she changes. And then I could send you some pictures. She changes into Madonna. And suddenly I see those pictures now from Google, and I kind of can't believe it. The difference between her sitting there and she's not famous, and then you're walking behind her and she's the most famous person on the planet, and she's Madonna, and she was not Madonna 5 seconds ago. But that's the thing about stardom which fascinates me, because somebody like her most dramatically, physically morphed into a star from the beginning. I mean, think about Holiday and crappy bangles or whatever. And then she just became, well, Papa Don't Preach was a big radical change for her. Suddenly she's not like slightly chubby like a virgin on MTV rolling around on the floor. No. And she also, I mean, because looking back at it, you know who Herb Ritz is? Herb Ritz was
Yes, yeah.
Uber, cover of Vogue and stuff like that. And they were good friends. And she picked him. He was instrumental in creating images of her becoming glamorous. And he shot that photo for the cover of True Blue, which was a very different cover than Like a Virgin. I mean, and she turned into dancing there in Papa Don't Preach. She didn't look anything like she did a few years before, and she had physically morphed into a star. And, you know, I remember, talk about siblings. Can you imagine being Madonna's sibling? And, and other people don't morph. On the Chamber, the other great experience was with Bo Jackson. Talk about a gift of being a movie director, because I am the biggest wimp in the world. And the idea that I would develop a relationship with Bo Jackson, including having him over my house smoking joints and him sharing things with me, it's like, wow. In what universe would that ever happen? Me, this wimp white boy from Staten Island, hanging out with Bo Jackson, which was interesting because he had a small part on that movie. And so you get a trailer relative to your part. So Gene Hackman has this thing. And the rule is the DGA that the director gets a trailer as big as the biggest one the actor has. So on that movie, my trailer was as big as Gene Hackman's, but I never went in it because why would I? I have to do something all the time. And I just somehow, from casting him, meeting him, I liked Bo. How unlikely a friendship as it was. And I see him squeezing into this little place. And I realized, I said to him, you know, I don't ever go in my trailer. Why don't you use that? And he did. And what was fascinating, which I love, is that when you're directing a movie, you know, nobody will talk to you. I had to learn because, you know, you're sitting around so much in the dark waiting for the lighting. And so you see a couple of grips standing there who are talking and want to go up and join the conversation. But what happens when you do? They stop talking. And you go to lunch, and if the actors aren't there or something, who do you sit with? And I learned I can't sit down at the table with all the grips and the gaffers because they'll stop their conversation. And I hate that, but that's the way it is. So you get lonely, and the script supervisor is actually the person who you're sitting next to all the time. So if I want to learn the gossip, because you want to know what's going on, be part of the game, you ask her, and she tells you gossip stuff. That's where I learned that the cast back in Trailerland, the cast, when Alec Baldwin arrived, they treated him like shit. I had no idea about that, but they hated his guts. And that's years later, I asked Alec about it, and he confirmed, yeah, that they hated him. But I would never know that.
Let me ask you something too. When it comes to working with like really attractive actresses, how do you like direct somebody like a Rachel Ward or Alyssa Milano, even though it's like you look at them on screen and you're just salivating?
Yeah, well, I will share with you something that, talk about psychoanalytically weird, that I had a relationship with Rachel Ward years before. And then she goes off and she marries Brian Brown. And then I'm making this movie, and I'm casting this stud, Jason Patrick, of all this sex. And I want Rachel Ward in it. And she wasn't a big shot, but I wanted her in it. And I was not conscious of what I was doing until years later. I think, what the fuck? That is real psychoanalytic material. But that's, again, you're operating from your loins, so to speak, not intellectually. And sometimes I feel like I don't want to become aware of what I'm doing, because then I'll hesitate and think about it. I don't want to think about anything. I want to just do it. But yeah, I mean, there's no question that it's pleasurable to interact with beautiful people who listen to you. And I still am shocked when I see pictures of, and I have a photo album, an iPhoto called Herding Cattle, if you get the reference. And it's me, photographs of me talking to actors, which I've never seen, but I'm shocked that I'm talking to an actor and they're listening to me. And like tons of me directing Madonna, and she's listening to me. And I think, what? Why are they listening to me? But it is the best part about making movies is, well, yeah, back to Bo. So, and the gossip was like, it was so weird that the director was giving a minor act his trailer. That was weird, not to me or to Bo. And anyway, but we're shooting on the Universal lot, and we're standing outside. You know, Universal have tours going on. So a tour bus comes by, and all of a sudden, a tour bus comes by full of family people. And suddenly, like, they were seeing Marilyn Monroe naked. All these fucking white guys from God knows where jump off of the thing, rush Bo, surround him, and start touching him, his arms and stuff. Like, guys, can your homoerotic thing be under control? Anyway, but what was fascinating was that later that day, Bo came by and was smoking a joint outside. And he started talking about that and sharing how much he hated it. Like, how dare they think they can touch me? Now, that's a moment that I did not my siblings will never have. And had I not become a director, because that's the thing, that if you become a director, you transcend every class of wealth or fame. You get a ticket to a world where there's no limitations. I mean, I've been to the White House several times. I had a conversation with Hillary Clinton because a New York Times writer, this very attractive woman, years before had mentioned to me that when Hillary was in the White House, she had, as First Lady, she had a press conference with just female reporters. And this woman, when she met me, she shared with me that Hillary was asked her favorite movies. One of them was, bizarrely, After Dark, My Sweet. And I didn't think much about it until years later. And Lawrence Bender, the producer of some Quentin movies, had a fundraiser for her New York Senate run in their backyard. You know, you pay $10,000 and you go hang out with Hillary, and you meet her, and of course somebody's next to her whispering who this is. And I shake her hand, and she looks at me, makes eye contact, squeezes my hand, and says, "You made one of my favorite movies." I mean, fuck money or anything else. That is bam. And then later in that thing, I'm sitting, and she comes by and sits down and talks for 20 minutes about my movie. And boy, nothing could be better than that. And I'll leave you with the last thing, the most recent thing. I get invited, and again, it's bizarre. I think university, we just have, would I come to Harvard and lecture? And I did without thinking about it until I see it on Google, and I think, what? Harvard did that? But the most important thing of that trip was, see what a fanboy I am. This film student guy meets me and gives me a tour of the campus. And I look up, and in the distance, I see Malia Obama walking towards me. I'm racing like I'm seeing a huge movie star. It's Malia Obama. And I kind of knew this in the back of my mind, but I'd forgotten that she was focusing on film at Harvard. And so she comes up, she knows my guide, and then he goes, okay, I'm showing off, which I can't do, but I'm using you guys to show off. This is what the best part of directing is. She looks at me, puts out a hand. He says my name, and she squeezes my hand hard and looks at me. She knows who I am. But I'm trying so hard to act cool. And anyway, then later, that student asked, that Malia was asking for my email address, if it was okay to maybe give her some advice about Hollywood. What did I say? No way, that bitch ain't getting my email. I did not say that. So I got an email from her, and I have been so conscious of staying cool, not dealing with me, much to my existential shock, as if I'm somebody she's looking up to give her advice about Hollywood. When I really want to like respond, I love your parents, come by and we'll have a barbecue in the back, which is my goal. I'm going to get at Michelle Endor Barack in my backyard. And, but, you know, that's the best bit about making movies, is your own life opens up, and there literally are no, because everybody watches movies. And even, you know, I'm not the most famous director. I'm not Quentin Tarantino or those guys. But if I mention movies or actors, people know who they are. Talking about Shauna Madonna, obviously, Sean marries her and then doesn't want her to be famous. It's like, hello, Sean, you married her. Who do you think you married? And that was such a bizarre thing. As you know, he beat up photographers for taking their picture. as if they're going to stop. And talk about psychology. Why'd you marry her? And then he married her and then tries to get her to not be famous. Wow. That was a non-starter. Anyway, I love Sean. He's so Sean. And if he would just not go meet El Chapo or whatever, maybe some of those moves. But I didn't meet Gavin Newsom at a fundraiser at Sean's house. So even that, you meet a governor who could be president. All of that stuff is access all areas, you know. And the biggest thing was in House of Cards. I don't know if you ever saw it, but House of Cards was so big in Washington that, you know, the White House Correspondents' Dinner they have every year, they asked us to make a film with real people talking about and Kevin Spacey, whatever his name was, Frank Underwood, was playing himself and interacting with real people like John McCain and Kevin McCarthy and stuff. So I get asked to direct it. I say, yeah. And I think back on it now. And so I get to go to the White House. And I remember it took forever to get all the grip stands through security because they were metal. But I go to the White House and I have to direct Valerie Jarrett talking, John McCain, the press secretary, and Kevin McCarthy. And that experience of having those guys, then they're nervous, of course, and they want me to direct them. And again, I'm on whatever drug I was on, and I did. Then I see a picture of me and John McCain and Valerie Jarrett and stuff. I say, I was at the White House. And one thing I remember sitting there, because, you know, famously the West Wing is small. So we're sitting in the waiting room, me and a skeleton crew. And suddenly something happens in the air, which was, there was a Secret Service guy there or something. And you know something's happening. And then the doors open and in rushes this huge entourage of Secret Service. And in the middle was, guess who, sweeping through there? Joe Biden, a younger Joe Biden. And I remember that. But the thing I don't remember is I'm walking around the West Wing. Why didn't I try to get into the Oval Office? He was not available to be in the video. But, and I have a picture of me and Kevin McCarthy, who at the time was right-wing monster. Little did I know. And I'll never forget, in his office is a gigantic picture of Abraham Lincoln, Republican. I remember wanting to vomit. Like, really? You associating yourself with Abraham Lincoln? You crazy person. But, and I just lay one last thing on you, which is ironic, because I was in a situation where I went with Diane Keaton, whose movie was going to play in the Clinton White House. So we watched the movie. Bill's there. The movie's over. And he says, would you like a tour? Of course. And the president's giving us a tour. But the motherfucker would not shut up. And it went on and on and on. And I'm thinking, please shut up, Mr. Clinton. I want to go to sleep. How weird is that? But he did talk a lot. But I love those things which would never happen. I mean, I'm sure you guys know that there are people in Staten Island who don't go into the city. They have no interest.
Yep.
And it's like, what? And growing up, it's like there are those who stayed on the island. Now, I'm not criticizing anybody who lives there voluntarily, but there are people who just have no interest in leaving the island. While Manhattan is it free, the ferry?
Yeah, it's free. It's free 16,000.
Yeah.
And then no interest in getting on the fucking ferry and going to Manhattan. What? Wow. I need to go back to Staten Island to catch up. But I
Yeah,
do
I'd
go.
love to catch up with you if you ever come downtown.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be so
You should.
cool to meet somebody whose mind is way beyond Staten Island, but is living
Yeah,
on Staten
I
Island.
could tell you my Alec Baldwin story too.
Oh, great! But the idea that you live near that street in Staten Island, which I couldn't tell you the name of it, but
You made it look more colorful than it really is in that video.
and it was a good cinematographer. It was Michael Bauhaus,
Oh, okay.
Wow.
who
Mm.
had done Reckless, and well, it all dovetails back to Marty Scorsese. And the downside of Marty Scorsese seeing Reckless is because Michael was committed to doing At Close Range, my next movie. And then Marty enters the picture after seeing Reckless and wants him to do whatever the first Scorsese collaboration was. And I was not happy about that. I mean, looking back, it's like, grow up. But at the time, I felt like I got mad at Michael.
Now, you were talking about like global stars eventually having to come to Hollywood. And of
Yeah.
course, you directed The Corruptor. And again, you were
Yeah.
talking about a language with actors. Was directing someone like Chow Yun-fat, where English is, a second language and he doesn't know much of it.
No,
Did
English
that
is like a
pose-
12th language. He didn't speak a word of English almost. And I didn't know that. Because I had met him, and he was always with his wife, who did speak English. And I didn't notice that he hardly spoke until I got on the set, and then I'm talking to him, directing him. And I see his eyes are glazed over. He didn't know a word I'm saying. And that was shocking to me when I first realized that. And his wife was quite I want to say something horribly sexist or something. She spoke English, and she was his enforcer on a certain level. I mean, not seriously, and I liked Yun-Fat a lot. And I think my directing him became more facial, like smiling or saying things. But I remember when him and Mark were in the same scene, and I'm talking and Mark's listening, and then I look over and Yun-Fat clearly doesn't have a clue what we're talking about. But anyway, I like that movie because it's incredibly violent, which is surprising to me. But also, until I watched Fear from iTunes, when I saw like this scene where Reese goes over and Mark is there and picks her up over his shoulder and spanking her. I mean, I thought it was like, whoa, wait a minute. It looked heavy duty to me. Like, I didn't remember it being dark like that. But speaking of siblings and stuff in Staten Island, I grew up and we had a German Shepherd named Kaiser. So we make the movie and there's a dog in it. It's a German Shepherd. So what am I going to call him? I call him Kaiser. And then he gets his head chopped off, famously.
Was there any pushback about that?
Well, only from my siblings. If ever there was anything to define the Great Divide, is that they were seriously like upset. How could I do that? I think it's a fucking movie. What am I? It's a German Shepherd. I have to call him a name. What would I call him but Kaiser? But that is so emblematic of the divide where I really like. Anytime it's a movie, it's make believe. But I was very happy with the job they did creating that head, and I thought it was hilarious. I still see it, and it's hilarious to me.
And the part when Mark Wahlberg throws Reese Witherspoon's friend off of the thing.
Oh.
Yeah, and it snaps his leg. It's like something out of Mortal Kombat. I want to know what happened to that thing.
Which one? When Mark killed her friend?
The male friend that he thought was hitting on her.
Yeah, so he runs. I mean, he runs and breaks his neck. That's it.
Yeah, because that was pretty wild how he like flipped him over.
I know. I saw it recently, or in somebody's re-edit, and I swear to God, I was like, "Whoa!" He just broke. And there's a sound effect, and for some reason, it never hit me. A lot of stuff in that movie just never hit me, including like, I mean, and I think Mark is incredibly good in the movie, like really good.
But I have one more question to ask you, and it's regarding the movie Perfect Stranger.
Yeah.
Working with Bruce Willis, was he starting to have the health issues then?
No, not that I could detect. But that's an example of like working with Gene Hackman, Halle Berry. I had a bond with her, and still do. And she just made a movie with Mark, so I was sending Mark. So I created both of you. But Halle Berry was such a peach. I love her. And talk about somebody beautiful. And I see pictures tagged Instagram, and I'm walking along, and me and Halle are holding hands as if it's, and totally unconsciously. And I look at it, I go, fuck me, it's Halle Berry. And she's so beautiful. And so I got to know her, and that movie was a disaster, but I worked with Halle Berry, so I don't care. And Bruce was, I had met Bruce early on, and famously, he had come in to meet on a part in At Close Range. What could it possibly be? And then subsequently, I ran into him at a party, and I didn't know who he was. And I heard back that he was insulted, but that's how arrogant I guess I was. I didn't remember who Bruce was. And we got along. I mean, he's not my favorite actor, but he was good. I mean, there was some tension with Halle and I remember Halle just pushing back and saying out loud, who's number one on the call sheet, because she was, not Bruce Willis. And she put her foot down, not about anything I was doing, but something with the production. And I loved her for that. Who's number one on the call sheet, which is, of course, the Bible of who's most important. Anyway, Halle Berry, I love you.
Jeff, do you have any last questions for Jamie?
It's not really a question. It's, I guess, like, was it intentional for there to be kind of a self-referential moment in Fear with the self-tattooing, and then Sean Penn's self-tattooing in At Close Range?
Wow, you're blowing my mind. Where is it? Okay, I can't see the mirror image. Go this way.
Thought I caught it
the
before.
mirror image, my brain is unable to show you that tattoo.
I could see it, yeah, a little bit.
I can see part of it.
What should I do? How can I not figure that out? There's the camera, jerk. Show them your tattoo.
You had it in there for a second.
Yeah, right there.
Got it. Right there.
Okay, go.
Yeah.
Turn your, okay, there.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, yep.
Okay, now, if you look closely, are you referencing this? Do you know this? Or am I telling you something? There's an actor who has the exact same tattoo, and it's here on his arm, which you see in some movies that he's done. In some movies, it's covered over. And that is Sean Penn. So my mind is reeling a little bit about that connection of tattoos and Mark, because, wait a minute, you're going to hang up on me when I say this. Sean Penn gives himself a tattoo like Mark does in Fear.
Well, yeah, Sean Penn does it more on his hand, and Mark does it on his chest.
And Sean does it where? Why do I mix those things up? And because in my mind, it's like But so you're pointing out something that is I was not
Oh,
conscious of.
oh yeah. I don't remember where in the movie in At Close Range, but at a certain moment we see like kind of in a montage, Sean Penn tattooing his hand for Mary Stuart Masterson, and then in
Oh,
Fear, when Mark has gone
wow! You're
full
blowing my mind.
crazy.
I can't believe that happened both times, and I was oblivious. But
Yeah, Mark just does it on his chest, but it's like
yeah,
Nicole Forever. I think
yeah,
it
exactly. I love it.
is.
I love it. And Mark, I mean, when she comes in and I and Alyssa is looking at the bad guy, and then she looks away, and then I love it. That's why I love that movie, is because, and the cinematographer who never did another feature was a very slick, big time commercial director. I love the way it looks. And again, it was like that whole aspect of one's relationship with the camera and shots. Like on those movies I'm talking about are personal. I am much more hands-on about every shot as opposed to 50 Shades, where I just had this uber slick DP who had gone to USC too and did all these, and operator. And so I was more than happy to have listened to their ideas just to make the whole thing look slick. But because I wasn't expressing myself with the images, as opposed to those other movies where I was. So particularly in those movies and of course in those videos, every shot is come out of my head, which makes it of course much more personal cinema. Anyway, I have to watch that Halle Berry Mark Wahlberg movie. By the way, the idea that Mark Wahlberg got so rich was like a shock to me, because I've been in contact with him and he knows I have no head for business. I'm not interested. So every time I've seen him, he usually comes to my house. We don't talk about that. But I don't know if you ever noticed on HBO, there's a series called Wall Street, which is just this glossy thing about Mark Wahlberg and his businesses. And I'm watching it thinking, what? How much money he has. And even his house, he subsequently moved to Vegas. But I'd been to that house a billion times to a screening room. But I'm watching it in 4K on HBO, and it's like I'm in Staten Island watching the Beverly Hillbillies or something. And I'm thinking, whoa, Mark is rich. But then this documentary is interesting. This was just this glossy love affair. And then something called COVID appears, and all of Mark's businesses are collapsing. So it becomes very real. And then his mother dies in the middle of it. And I'm watching this guy who's my friend, but who I've never seen be Mark Wahlberg. He's not a guy who just wears his heart on his sleeve. But he is in this thing. And I'm sitting there watching somebody I know, seeing something I've never seen. And I had met his mother many times, and I know how close he was with her. So that series becomes a very interesting, dramatic thing, totally by accident. But most actors don't own their own jet. They time lease it. Mark owns his own jet. And he makes so many movies. But I tease him because I know demographically his movies are much bigger in what I call flyover country, not for coastal elites in New York and LA. But he's like such a weird stealth movie star in a way, because he gets paid an enormous amount of money, makes incredible number of movies. And you look at the list of the top 10 streaming things, and Mark always has at least one or more movies. And he keeps on making movies that I can't keep up with, including the Halle Berry one. And he is so devoted to his family. I talked to him on FaceTime. I never know where the fuck he is. He's like getting a massage at the Creon Hotel in Paris, where it's $3,000 an hour to stay. But I can't see outside, and he doesn't bring it up. He's the exact same person he was. And what I love about him is that anytime if I'm up at a screening or something and there's somebody I've not met and he introduces me, he props me for being the guy who said I would quit unless he was hired. So, you know, you meet a lot of people and you become friends with people for a period of time because you're meeting all these people on the movie and everybody loves each other, and then slowly it fades away. But those few people who stick become very, like, important when you get older. And he's definitely one of them. I look forward to watching this and sending you my notes about how to edit it.
Feel free. Feel free.
Yeah, please.
I want to find a cut. No.
We'll definitely let you know when it's up.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah, please do. And I want to look at your back catalog there, which I know where it is. I just need to stop watching YouTubes of myself. Watch somebody else.
Yeah, we could send a link to the past episodes, even some of my film work if you're interested.
Oh,
I mean, if it's
absolutely,
okay.
yes. Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the episode of Deep Dive we did on fear. Interestingly enough.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, feed my insatiable ego. Anyway, well, truly good break outside of this bubble of La La Land. But I will say to Staten Islanders, there are still moments in a good mood, if the weed is good, where I look around, I see palm trees, and it seems exotic. I've been here for 1,000 years, but I still am in Staten Island, and you see LA or something, and there's palm trees, and you want to go there. And I can connect with that feeling. Looking up, and I own palm trees as much as anybody owns the earth. But I love fucking LA.
Mm-hmm.
I love Hollywood. It's liberal. Okay, dudes. Thanks a lot for.
Thanks a lot, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I get to hang out with presidents and with you guys. So
It's a real honor, too.
how much better can it be?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Adios.
We just want to thank you for your work, as you're a director of movies that we are personally fans of, obviously, that don't seem to get talked about as much as they should. We definitely want to show our gratitude for your work and just your artistic vision and what you do. And we want to give you your flowers as fans and lovers of cinema. And thank you for talking to us today.
If you like this review, please be sure to like and hit subscribe to be alerted to new episodes in the future.